Alright, today I'm just going to show you my land snail terrarium and give you some very basic care and setup maintenance requirements for a land snail. This is my brand new tank. I just set it up. It's not real big, it's just a small clear view container. This is the lid. As you can see, it's got some ventilation there. Not a whole lot though, because you need high humidity for these guys. My substrate is just a coconut fiber. Usually goes by Eco Earth in stores. Here's what the bag looks like. And this is just a coconut fiber. Use coconut fiber substrate. And it's called Eco Earth. And it's by Zilla, I believe. One of the most popular ones you can find in the store. You can also find it in the bricks, but I prefer the loose so I can get it to the humidity I need, and for each of my different animals I need a different humidity. I use it mostly dry for my crested gecko. That's a crested gecko right there in the package actually. I make it really, really damp for my snails. Be perfect to use a brick, which you soak in water to expand it and then use it. And I kind of go in between for my millipedes, so that's why I prefer the loose. And then you can see here, I have some loose pieces of just moss, terrarium moss, just kind of thrown in there. You can also mix it into the soil, which is what I do for my millipedes. That's what I meant to do, but I forgot and I put everything in here already. So I just threw it on top for now. For snails, do not use a peat moss substrate, which is what this is. That's just a Canadian sphagnum peat moss. Any kind of peat, do not use it for snails. It's okay to use for most other invertebrates, but it actually has an acidic pH, which breaks down the shell of snails, so absolutely do not use peat for a snail tank. I think it holds moisture longer and better than the cocoa fiber, but like I said, it has a low pH, which is considered an acidic pH, and this is very, very harmful to your snail shell. So don't use it. Use either a fertilizer, chemical pesticide, everything free, basic potting soil, and or cocoa fiber for snails. That seems to be the best. And actual loose moss. Not peat, ground up peat moss, but just regular terrarium moss is fine. Great for hides. You want plenty of places for your snails to climb and hide. I was trying to use, just bark pieces and twigs from outside when I started, and at the really high humidity that I found my snails seemed to enjoy the most and were out and about and most active at, no matter what I did, my bark and all kinds of different wood things I've tried have molded. So if you really want a wood texture for your snail terrariums or your dart frog terrarium, which also needs a very high humidity, I would suggest cork bark. I haven't personally tried it simply because I couldn't find a really small piece. Everything I could find was way too big for this tank, so I haven't tried it, but that's supposed to be the most mold-resistant wood out in the pet trade market, and I know plenty of people that float it right on water or use it around the edges of ponds and terrariums and don't have any problems with it. But like I said, you're going to want some kind of climbing structure. I got this giant pot in here. A lot of people use little clay terracotta pots, any kind of different plastic things you could put in here. You could even take, take foam pieces. You could put foam rods, just across this way or whatever, and if you make it the same length or width as your tank, it'll just stay up above the ground by itself. You could take plastic coat hangers and cut them to size and just kind of lay them in there for climbing space. But your snails can climb up smooth surfaces. So the climbing space is just to basically turn your middle of your terrarium into a giant climbing place. So that instead of just having your walls of the terrarium and the floor of the terrarium, they now have stuff in the middle that's actually up off the ground and gives them extra places to climb. You're also going to want a place for them to hide. My pot is really good for this because they can hide on the inside. And I see we got a horrible layer there. But they can hide on the inside here, and I stuck a little plant in there, and I have more soil, so that soil is also really damp. And the pot's going to help trap that humidity from the soil as the water evaporates. Like I said, the moss is also great to shove into your hide, so that your hide should have a higher humidity in it than the rest of your tank. So this is great if you forget to mist it a night or something and your humidity is getting really low, they can go in that hideout and still get the level of humidity they need. I have a plant in here. They should be able to climb on this. So this is going to create a lot of hiding space. It adds a really nice natural touch. It adds some color to my terrarium. And like I said, they should be able to climb on pretty much the entirety of this plant. So this plant's also one giant climbing structure. My pot is as well. There's room up underneath the pot. It's kind of blocked though by the moss. I didn't think of that. I'm going to remove that. But they can climb up underneath there. They can climb on the top. They can climb in this and in behind. So I tried to leave the wall, not put it up against the wall, so they still have the wall and the most of the pot as possible to climb on. And they can get underneath too. I dug out the soil from out underneath right here at the lip. So they can get under there, climb on the pot, hide in the soil. So there's like 2 hides. They can hide, climb on the plant, hide in the plant. My smaller snails do that. They can climb in the hide. And like I said, I even put a little plant inside the hide to make them feel extra safe. Since the hide's so big, they can hide in behind that. It adds a little color. And since my pot was taking up most of my terrarium, I got to add some color and sneak in a piece of decor that way. And then you can just add all kinds of little decor elements. This here is just a little plastic like fish gemstone. So you can do stuff like that. Plants. And you're going to dish. This is their dish in the back. I have a carrot, and that white thing is cuttlefish bone. It's very important that, like I said, that white thing, that's a piece of cuttlefish bone. Snails absolutely need a source of calcium to keep their shells strong and healthy and to grow. And cuttlefish bone is usually given to birds for them to chew on and to supply them calcium, but you can also just break little pieces off and put it in your dish. You can get a small one at any pet store for about $2 or $3, so it's really cheap. You can also, in the morning or when you're cooking, you can save your eggshells and just rinse like the goop and slime out of them, put the eggshells in there, and they'll actually eat the calcium from the eggshell, and it'll seep into the soil and help keep them healthy. Another option would be to actually use a reptile calcium powder and just put just a very, very little bit amount in their dish with their vegetables. And I got a much bigger dish than what they had because I need all of them to basically be able to fit into it, and I'm tired of them dragging their veggies all over the place. Because then, I don't find them, they get stuck in the soil, and they get slimy and nasty and smelly. So, hopefully this is tall enough for it to stay in there and wide enough for them to all fit. So as basic care, you just want to keep giving them fresh vegetables and fruits. Mostly vegetables though, because fruits start to ferment and smell horrible very quickly. So just constantly supply them fresh veggies and change them out and, replenish them about every other day or so. Mist, I'd say probably about nightly for the humidity that most snails need. You can kind of see from their behavior and judge it. If the snails are out and climbing around, they're probably pretty happy. And if they're not climbing around and they're kind of just sticking and curled up in their shell somewhere, then they're not very happy. You probably need more humidity or too acidic, or you're not feeding them enough or something. So light misting about nightly, and I made the soil very, very wet, more so than I do for any of my other animals. But, so this is their new terrarium. It looks pretty tightly packed, but like I said, this whole thing is, the plant is a giant climbing structure, and it'll help make them feel more safe, and the pot is a giant climbing structure, so, and my plant is like falling over. It's not staying, but anywho, so there's that. But this is their new tank. This is their old cage. Not too exciting, but it did the trick. This is just a plastic barrel-shaped container from a family size of party mix or like pretzels, and then I just glued plastic canvas over a hole I cut in the lid. I use hot glue for my gluing needs because it's just melted plastic, it's harmless. And then there's that terracotta pot that I said that, you know, is very popular for small invertebrates and snails and pretty much everything. And then their dish is just a little bottle cap. But size-wise, it's great, but this is actually too much ventilation, and I'm bad at remembering to mist them every day. So we need something that was going to hold it better, the humidity better, plus I wanted something way nicer to look at because it's like right in the walkway of my house. But my snails aren't in here right now. They're in here. You can see one of them's out there. They're probably pretty happy by the fact that there's a lot of water. It's the one that's not so shy. It's just a little damp cloth that's in there. And as you can see, I have 4. 2 big ones and 2 little ones. And the little ones are, from my research, they're quite possibly just a very young versions of these big guys here. But my one that's out there, that's Jasper. My other one, big one here in the front, is Agate, and the 2 small ones are Slimy and Squishy. Slimy's the bigger of the 2 tiny ones. But so I'm gonna put them in here then. So it's gonna be the new cage. A few other notes here. I did say, you know, a lot of people use terracotta pots. However, your really good care sheets out there for keeping snails as pets. Specifically, I was looking at care sheets for the giant land snails, which are very popular in the UK. And all of your good care sheets will actually suggest that you don't use any kind of really hard decor. So they actually suggest staying away from terracotta pots and like just decorative rocks from outside, because if a snail you'd spook it or something opening the cage and would let go of the side of the container or would fall off and would land on the stone or the terracotta pot, it could actually crack open their shell, and it'll either create, you know, a crack in their shell that will mend over time, or it could actually squish them and kill them to death. So, plenty of people have used terracotta pots for snails. If you're just going outside and just collecting snails out of your garden or the forest like I did with these guys, then, you know, you may not care. But if you're actually buying snails as a pet, you probably want to, just for safety, stay away from anything really hard. So stay away from rocks and clay and glass. What I have in here, this is actually tin. But as you can, like, it's solid, but it's not really, like, hard. It's not nearly as hard as a rock or a terracotta pot. It's just a very thin metal, and it's got this plastic PVC coating over it, which will seal out the humidity and prevent rusting, and makes it nice and smooth and easy to clean. This is silk, and then my bowl back there is just plastic. So I would say a very thin metal that's pretty soft. You know, what they consider pliable metal would be okay, and plastic, but it is suggested you do stay away from clay and glass and rocks because of that. So we're gonna actually go ahead here and try and put these guys in here, see what they think, and I can give you a quick here. I think I just spooked Jasper into going into his shell. And a note, I say he. I call most of my snails he's. But snails are actually hermaphroditic. So they can breed by themselves. A single snail can reproduce. They have both male and female parts. So they don't really have a gender. But I refer to most of them as boys. But a snail that's, they're not really doing anything, like they're in their shell like this, you can just very gently just pick them up. Just very gently just pick them up, Just pinch them like don't pinch, don't bear down with your weight or anything, just very gently, almost in a pinching motion, pick them up. You can see the little gray body in there. It's actually getting darker than it used to be. It's kind of cool. Or it could be that they need more calcium. But as you can see, I do give them calcium. But that's one way to pick them up. And most cases, they're going to be in their shell. But if they're like Jasper here, and they're out of their shell, you can try just picking up their shell. And some snails will let go when you do that. And you're moving away. But as you can see, he's, not letting go. He's staying attached. He pretty much wants to stay on there. And you don't want to just grab your snail shell and just yank up. You can grab snail shell and lift very slowly and very gently. Most snails, they'll just let go of what they're on. But if they don't, and you just keep yanking, and they keep holding harder onto what they're attached to, you could actually end up ripping your snail out of its shell, which will kill them. So don't do that. Don't do that. So if they're out of their shell and they don't want to let go, you actually just ease your fingers around the shell, underneath, and try to ease it under their body. Which is what I did. As you can see, you can see the foot there. I just eased my finger around the shell and under his body. You can also just try to, in his case, I'll put my finger in front of him and, gently push his shell forward, and usually he'll crawl. Jasper here will crawl onto my finger. But he's my buddy. I don't even know why I say my buddy, but I don't have well of a close-up and be able to actually give you without the camera cutting out. I guess not really well there. Doesn't want to cooperate. But his mouth is actually underneath here. And the eyeballs are those two big things sticking up. But, so let's go ahead. Try to put him in here. Maybe. He seems to prefer my finger. Like I said, I'm trying to do this with one hand. And go on, Jasper. Go on. There we go. Oop. When you're setting your snail down that you're getting to move off your finger or your hand, just kind of let them go. Them go pretty much on their own accord. You don't want to just drop them or let go of them before they got a good attachment to where they're heading. Because if they don't have a good attachment and you just let go, the shell's heavier than the rest of them and they're just gonna fall. And they're not gonna be too happy. He's actually pretty stuck to my finger yet. There we go. You can see I got slime snail poop on my finger. There he goes. Check it out. So I'm going to put the other guys away and put the tank where it goes. So if you have any questions, shoot me a message.